Introduction. Fundamental rights are the basic human rights that are guaranteed to every citizen of India by the Constitution of India. These rights are essential for the development and well-being of every individual and are considered the cornerstone of democratic society. The Indian Constitution guarantees several fundamental rights to its citizens, which are enshrined in Part 3 of the Constitution. This article will provide an in-depth analysis of the fundamental rights guaranteed under the Indian Constitution, including their scope, limitations, and restrictions. Guaranteed fundamental rights. 1. Right to equality. The right to equality is one of the most important fundamental rights guaranteed under the Indian Constitution. It ensures that every citizen is treated equally before the law and has equal opportunities in every sphere of life. The right to equality includes the following. A. Equality before law. Every citizen of India is equal before the law, and no one is above the law. B. Prohibition of discrimination. Discrimination based on religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth is prohibited. C. Equality of opportunity. Every citizen has an equal opportunity to access education, employment, and public services. 2. Right to freedom. The right to freedom is another fundamental right guaranteed under the Indian Constitution. It includes the following. A. Freedom of speech and expression. Every citizen has the right to express their opinions freely and without fear of retribution. B. Freedom of religion. Every citizen has the right to follow any religion of their choice. C. Freedom of movement. Every citizen has the right to move freely throughout the country. D. Freedom of assembly. Every citizen has the right to peacefully assemble and protest. E. Freedom of association. Every citizen has the right to form associations and unions. 3. Right to life and personal liberty. The right to life and personal liberty is one of the most fundamental rights guaranteed under the Indian Constitution. It ensures that every citizen has the right to live with dignity and freedom. This right includes the following. A. Right to life. Every citizen has the right to life, and no one can be deprived of their life except according to the procedure established by law. B. Right to personal liberty. Every citizen has the right to personal liberty and cannot be detained without a valid reason. C. Right to privacy. Every citizen has the right to privacy, and their personal information cannot be disclosed without their consent. 4. Right to education. The right to education is another fundamental right guaranteed under the Indian Constitution. It ensures that every citizen has the right to access education without any discrimination. The right to education includes the following. A. Right to free and compulsory education. Every child between the ages of 6 and 14 has the right to free and compulsory education. B. Right to education without discrimination. Every citizen has the right to access education without any discrimination based on religion, caste, sex, or place of birth. C. Right to education in one's mother tongue. Every citizen has the right to receive education in their mother tongue. 5. Cultural and educational rights. The Constitution of India also guarantees cultural and educational rights to its citizens. These rights include the following. A. Right to preserve and promote one's culture. Every citizen has the right to preserve and promote their culture. B. Right to establish and administer educational institutions. Every citizen has the right to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. C. Right to minority education. Every citizen belonging to a linguistic or religious minority has the right to receive education in their own language or religion. Scope of fundamental rights. The scope of fundamental rights is vast and comprehensive. They apply to every citizen of India, regardless of their religion, caste, sex, or place of birth. The fundamental rights protect the individual against the arbitrary and unjust actions of the state. The scope of fundamental rights also extends to private entities that are engaged in public activities, such as running educational institutions, hospitals, and public utilities. The Supreme Court of India has interpreted the scope of fundamental rights broadly and expansively. It has held that the rights guaranteed under the Constitution are not absolute and can be restricted only in the interest of the sovereignty and integrity of India, public order, morality, and the general welfare of the people. Limitations and restrictions of fundamental rights. Although fundamental rights are guaranteed under the Constitution of India, they are not absolute and can be subject to certain limitations and restrictions. These limitations and restrictions are necessary to maintain the balance between the rights of the individual and the interest of the state. 1. Reasonable restrictions. The Constitution of India allows the state to impose reasonable restrictions on the exercise of fundamental rights. These restrictions are necessary to maintain public order, protect the sovereignty and integrity of India, and promote the interests of the general public. For example, the right to freedom of speech and expression can be restricted if it is likely to cause public disorder or incitement to an offense. Similarly, the right to freedom of assembly can be restricted if it poses a threat to public safety. 2. Emergency provisions. The Constitution of India provides for emergency provisions that allow the government to suspend some of the fundamental rights during times of emergency. During a national emergency, the President of India can suspend the right to freedom of speech and expression, the right to freedom of movement, and the right to life and personal liberty. However, such a suspension can only be done on the advice of the Council of Ministers and must be approved by both Houses of Parliament within 1 month. 3. Judicial interpretation. The Supreme Court of India has the power to interpret and define the scope of fundamental rights. It has the authority to strike down any law or executive action that violates the fundamental rights guaranteed under the Constitution. The Supreme Court has used this power to strike down laws that discriminate on the basis of religion, caste, or sex. It has also struck down laws that violate the right to life and personal liberty, such as laws that allow custodial torture or extrajudicial killings. Conclusion. In conclusion, fundamental rights are an essential part of the Indian Constitution, which guarantees several rights to its citizens. These rights are necessary for the development and well-being of every individual and are considered the cornerstone of democratic society. However, these rights are not absolute and can be subject to certain limitations and restrictions. The Constitution of India provides for reasonable restrictions, emergency provisions, and judicial interpretation to maintain a balance between the rights of the individual and the interest of the state. It is the duty of every citizen to respect and protect these fundamental rights and to work towards creating a society where these rights are fully realized. UPSC exam perspective. When writing an answer for the UPSC exam, it is essential to keep in mind the following points. 1. Familiarity with the Constitution. To write a comprehensive and well-informed answer, it is crucial to have a thorough understanding of the Constitution of India. One should be well versed with the provisions of the Constitution, including the preamble, the fundamental rights, and the directive principles of state policy. 2. Structure of the answer. It is important to structure the answer in a logical and coherent manner. The answer should begin with an introduction, followed by a brief description of the fundamental rights guaranteed under the Constitution. The next section should cover the scope of these rights, followed by the limitations and restrictions on these rights. The answer should end with a conclusion that summarizes the main points of the answer. 3. Examples. Providing relevant and accurate examples can add depth and clarity to the answer. While discussing the scope, limitations, and restrictions of fundamental rights, it is important to cite relevant cases and laws that illustrate these points. 4. Balancing rights with state interest. It is essential to maintain a balance between the rights of the individual and the interest of the state. Therefore, while discussing the limitations and restrictions on fundamental rights, it is crucial to highlight the reasons behind these restrictions and the importance of maintaining public order and security. 5. Analytical and critical thinking. The UPSC exam demands analytical and critical thinking skills. Therefore, it is important to analyze the given question, understand the context, and provide a well-reasoned answer. The answer should be analytical, and the student should provide their interpretation and understanding of the topic. Conclusion. In conclusion, understanding the fundamental rights guaranteed under the Constitution of India and their limitations and restrictions is crucial for cracking the UPSC exam. The answer should be structured logically, and the student should use relevant examples to illustrate their points. The answer should also maintain a balance between individual rights and state interest, and the student should demonstrate analytical and critical thinking skills. Thanks for watching.